the United States Air Force has carried out missions that changed history, but not all of them were victories. Today, we uncover 7 of the deadliest and most controversial USAF operations, ranked from least to most deadly. First, the Haditha Massacre, 2005, Iraq. A brutal event where unarmed civilians, including women and children, were gunned down in cold blood. What really happened that day? Second, Kunduz Hospital Airstrike, 2015, Afghanistan. A hospital bombed in the middle of the night. Patients, doctors, nurses caught in the flames. A tragic mistake or something worse? Third, Wedding Party Airstrikes, 2002 to 2008, Afghanistan and Iraq. Celebrations turned into horror. Several wedding parties bombed over 7 years. Dancing, laughter, then death from above. Fourth, the Highway of Death, 1991, Iraq-Kuwait, Highway 80. A nightmarish slaughter. Thousands of retreating soldiers, stuck in traffic, became sitting ducks for relentless airstrikes. A massacre disguised as warfare. Fifth, drone strikes, 2009 to present, global operations. A silent killer from the sky. No warnings, no trials, just a missile and countless innocent lives lost. Is this modern warfare or state-sponsored terror? Sixth, the secret bombing of Cambodia and Laos, 1964 to 1973. The war that never made headlines. Millions of tons of bombs rained down, wiping out entire villages. A war they tried to keep in the shadows. Seventh, Operation Rolling Thunder, 1965 to 1973, Vietnam War. The most intense bombing campaign in history. Over 864,000 tons of bombs dropped. Cities flattened. Lives shattered. All in the name of war. The Haditha Massacre was a series of killings on November 19, 2005, in which a group of United States Marines killed 25 unarmed Iraqi civilians. The killings occurred in the city of Haditha, in Iraq's western province of Al-Anbar. Among the dead were men, women, elderly people and children as young as 3 years old, who were shot multiple times at close range. The massacre took place after an improvised explosive device exploded near a convoy, killing a lance corporal and severely injuring 2 other Marines. In response, the Marines killed 5 men from a nearby taxicab and 19 others inside 4 nearby homes. An initial Marine Corps communique falsely reported that 15 civilians were killed by the bomb's blast and that 8 insurgents were subsequently killed by the Marines. A Time magazine reporter's questions prompted the U.S. military to open an investigation into the incident. The investigation found evidence that supports accusations that U.S. Marines deliberately shot civilians, according to an anonymous Pentagon official. On October 3, 2015, a United States Air Force AC-130U gunship attacked the Kunduz Trauma Center operated by Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, in the city of Kunduz, in the province of the same name in northern Afghanistan. 42 people were killed and over 30 were injured. Médecins Sans Frontières condemned the incident, calling it a deliberate breach of international humanitarian law and a war crime. It further stated that all warring parties had been notified about the hospital and its operations well in advance. The United States military initially said the airstrike was carried out to defend U.S. forces on the ground. Later, the United States commander in Afghanistan, General John Francis Campbell, said the airstrike was requested by Afghan forces who had come under Taliban fire. Finally, Campbell said the airstrike was a U.S. decision, made in the U.S. chain of command, and not requested by Afghan forces. On 7 October 2015, President Barack Obama issued an apology and announced the United States would be making condolence payments of $6,000 to the families of those killed in the airstrike. The third U.S. Air Force operation considered as war crime concerns bombing several wedding parties during the period 2002 to 2008 in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Bagh-2 wedding party airstrike refers to the killing of about 37 Afghan civilians, mostly women and children, and injuring about 27 others by a United States military airstrike on 3 November 2008. The Hasqa Mena wedding party airstrike was an attack on 6 July 2008, in which 47 Afghans were killed. Many Afghan civilians were walking in an area called Kamala in Hasqa Mena district of the eastern province of Nangarhar. When the group stopped for a rest, it was hit in succession by 3 bombs from United States military aircraft. The first bomb hit a group of children who were walking ahead of the main procession, killing them instantly. A few minutes later, the aircraft returned and dropped a second bomb in the center of the group, killing many women. The bride and 2 girls survived the second bomb, but were killed by a third bomb while trying to escape from the area. Haj Khan, one of 4 elderly men who were escorting the party, stated that his grandson was killed and that there were body parts everywhere. On the night of February 26th to 27th, 1991, during the final days of the Gulf War, U.S.-led coalition forces launched a devastating airstrike on a retreating Iraqi convoy along Highway 80, the main road between Kuwait City and Basra, Iraq. The convoy consisted of hundreds of vehicles, including military trucks, tanks, civilian cars, and buses, as thousands of Iraqi soldiers, along with possible civilians, attempted to flee Kuwait. American A-10 Warthogs, F-15s, F-A-18s, Apache helicopters, and British Tornado jets bombed the convoy, destroying an estimated 1,400 to 2,000 vehicles and killing hundreds to thousands of Iraqi soldiers. The attack trapped the convoy by striking vehicles at the front and rear, turning the highway into a fiery graveyard of burned-out wreckage stretching for miles. Images of the destruction shocked the world. Some saw it as a justified military strike to prevent Iraqi forces from regrouping, while others criticized it as excessive force against a retreating army. The brutality sparked controversy. Critics called it a massacre of retreating forces, possibly violating the Third Geneva Convention. But U.S. commanders defended the attack. U.S. Air Force and CIA drones have carried out thousands of airstrikes in Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Syria. While targeting jihadists, many civilians were unintentionally killed. In 2021, a drone mistakenly targeted an aid worker, killing 10 civilians, including 7 children. The attack occurred soon after the fall of Kabul, which led to the end of the war in Afghanistan that lasted from 2001 to 2021. In the days after the fall of Kabul, mass civilian evacuations took place at Hamid Karzai International Airport. During these evacuations, the airport was attacked by a suicide bomber which killed at least 183 people. U.S. forces believed that subsequent attacks from ISIS were imminent, and through a series of erroneous intelligence decisions, linked a white 1996 Toyota Corolla and its driver, Zamari Ahmadi, to a terrorist plot. In actuality, Ahmadi was a worker for Nutrition and Education International, a California-based aid group. An official United States Air Force record of U.S. bombing activity over Indochina from 1964 to 1973 was declassified by U.S. President Bill Clinton in 2000. The report provides details of the extent of the bombing of Cambodia, as well as of Laos and Vietnam. According to the data, the Air Force began bombing the rural regions of Cambodia along its South Vietnam border in 1965 under the Johnson administration. This was 3.5 years earlier than previously believed. From 1965 to 1968, 214 tons of bombs were dropped over Cambodia. The menu bombings were an escalation of what had previously been tactical air attacks. Newly inaugurated President Richard Nixon authorized for the first time use of long-range Boeing B-52 Stratofortress heavy bombers to carpet bomb Cambodia. The secret bombing campaign of Cambodia and Laos between 1964 and 1973 during the Vietnam War, carried out mainly by the U.S. under Operation Rolling Thunder, Operation Menu, and Operation Freedom Deal, resulted in significant casualties, civilian deaths, likely between 40,000 and 200,000, and the total deaths, including combatants, between 600,000 and 1 million. The bombings were meant to disrupt North Vietnamese supply lines, Ho Chi Minh Trail, and weaken communist forces. Khmer Rouge, Pathet Lao and Viet Cong, and Laos became the most heavily bombed country per capita in history, with over 2 million tons of ordnance dropped. Cambodia's bombings fueled the rise of the Khmer Rouge, which later committed genocide from 1975 to 1979. Finally, the most deadly operation from U.S. Air Force is Operation Rolling Thunder. This was a large-scale U.S. bombing campaign from March 2, 1965 to November 2, 1968, aimed at crippling North Vietnam's war infrastructure, including transportation, industrial targets, and military sites, while demoralizing both the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. The operation was designed to disrupt the flow of supplies and support from North to South Vietnam, particularly along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but faced limitations due to political restrictions, weather conditions, and the resilience of North Vietnamese air defenses. Over 864,000 tons of bombs were dropped, resulting in the destruction of infrastructure, but with limited strategic impact. Casualty estimates for North Vietnam vary, with approximately 50,000 to 75,000 people killed, many of them civilians. While the operation did not achieve its goals of breaking North Vietnam's will to fight, it escalated U.S. involvement in Vietnam, contributed to growing anti-war sentiment, and set the stage for future, more intense bombing campaigns.